Hello and welcome to the 1001 Movies Podcast. In this episode, I'll be talking about Tim Burton's 1989 summer blockbuster, Batman.
Batman. Can somebody tell me what kind of a world we live in where a man dressed up as a bat gets all of my press? This town needs an enema.
Batman was the summer blockbuster of 1989, and since then, movies about comic book heroes have never been the same. Now, to truly appreciate the film, you need to take a look back at not only how it was made, but also the history of the character of Batman. Batman was created by Bob Kane in 1939 for Detective Comics. Initially, he was a very quote-unquote police procedural type of character, catching thugs and bank robbers, but eventually he teamed up with Robin the Boy Wonder and began fighting iconic villains such as the Joker, the Riddler, and the Penguin. By the 1950s, though, the comic kind of devolved into Batman and Robin fighting aliens from outer space, and it's kind of generally considered to be the low point in the character's long life. The television show, which aired in the 60s, didn't exactly help people take the franchise seriously, despite the fact that the show did sort of have its own charming virtues. Now, by the 80s, comic writers decided to reboot the franchise, focusing on Bruce Wayne's dark past and his dual personality. Alan Moore's serial The Killing Joke was especially dark, and I think it probably inspired the filmmakers in creating the film's style. Plans to make the movie had been in the works since the late 70s, but no studio would touch the project, and it wasn't until the success of Superman, it's in 1978, that producers began to realize the potential of superhero movies, and by the mid-80s plans were underway to make Batman. However, the project kind of seemed to lack focus. Some thought it should follow in the footsteps of the TV show, and there were even rumors that Bill Murray would be cast as Batman with Eddie Murphy as Robin, and thank God we never saw that. Once the producers saw the success of Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, he was asked to sit in the director's chair, and things really began to solidify for the film. However, Burton shocked everyone by insisting on casting Michael Keaton as Batman. Keaton was known primarily as a comic actor because of movies like Mr. Mom and Johnny Dangerously, and his casting was such a coup that it even made the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Now, Tim Burton stood by his decision, saying he cast Keaton because his eyes reflected the dual personality that was needed for the character. Now, casting Jack Nicholson as a Joker was just a no-brainer. I mean, not only was he a perfect actor for the part, but he would lend the movie some prestige and bring in a broader audience, like they did with Marlon Brando and Superman. Now, at the time, Batman was the most expensive movie ever made, and its marketing campaign was viral before that term was even invented. Merchandise sold out before the movie was even released, and the Batman logo became instantly recognizable, and it remains iconic now, 25 years later. Now, although some people might argue that Tim Burton has now long outstayed his welcome in Hollywood, Batman remains his finest film, I think, and it retains the look and feel that Tim Burton and his team have become known for. For instance, in Batman, Burton chose to film the movie primarily in Pinewood Studios in England, rather than in a large metropolis like New York. And as a result, Gotham City became a character in and of itself in the film. The set design is exceptional, and it earned Oscars for Anton Furst and Peter Young. Now, the film's critics often cite the writing as being a problem because Sam Hamm's script was, for reasons that really don't seem clear to me, given a facelift by Warren Scarron, who allegedly didn't quite understand the production team's desire to keep the story dark. I suspect, although I honestly don't know, that this accounts for scenes such as Bruce Wayne sleeping upside down like a bat, which is probably the film's only facepalm moment. Nevertheless, the story and the script remained solid. Part of the fun of watching Batman is, as I mentioned, taking in the visuals. The chemical plant, the church, the alleys, all of these are dark pastiches of themselves. The chemical factory, for instance, exists purely as a chemical factory, with the vats of boiling green acid and the metal walkways. Only in a Tim Burton film can a place look and feel like an exaggeration of itself. And this is true with the church in the finale as well. Like, is there any real reason to have a rickety bell tower that's 20 stories tall? And not really, other than to have something from which the Joker could fall to his death. But do we care? Of course not. It's all about form, not functionality. But for me personally, the gem in the film is Jack Nicholson, who steals literally every scene he appears in. The film could have been retitled The Joker for all I care. Nicholson's Joker is psychotic, comic, and incredibly fun to watch, and it's a shame that he wasn't nominated for an Oscar. Now, years later, of course, Heath Ledger would win one for playing the same role. Creator Bob Kane loved the film, and he called it the Batman of the 90s because the hero was so realistic rather than atypical. Now, I could argue that it's the Batman beyond the 90s, and not just because of Christopher Nolan's 2005 reboot. Bruce Wayne is the epitome of a tragic hero, avenging the death of his parents by fighting Gotham City's villains, while sadly unable to take credit for everything he's done. The film holds up remarkably well 25 years later, and doesn't smack of the period in which it was made. It could easily pass for something made in 2014. Watching it now for the first time in years is a fun experience. It might be easy for some to bury it underneath the massive collection of comic book hero films that have been released in recent years, but none of them would arguably exist if it wasn't for this movie. Batman spawned 3 sequels, some of which are best forgotten, a successful animated television series, a reboot that has made 3 movies so far, and reinvigorated the comic franchise. It's a timeless classic, and it will continue to thrill audiences 25 years from now. So that's all I have to say about Batman. In episode 4, I'll be turning the clock back 22 years to 1967 and talking about Weekend, directed by Jean-Luc Godard. See you then, ladies and gentlemen.